post-processing tutorial in DxO Photolab 7 and Nik Collection. I'm using Photolab 7, trying out different raw editors for my images in comparison to Lightroom. And yeah, I'll have another video discussing the pros and cons and my thoughts on DxO, and perhaps is it the best converter for you? Is it the best photo editor for you? Should you stick with your current photo editor, etc., etc. Very briefly, I'll say that it's probably, I would say it's better at handling the raw files more than Lightroom. I find more dynamic range in the images, and color is slightly better as well, but I'll save all that for the full video. For now, I'm going to show you how we can go from this image to this image in Photolab and Nik Collection. I'm going to start with some smart lighting first. So we've got, initially I was looking at making this a very kind of a soft pastel style image, but now I'm going to kind of go for a bit of a moodier shot. So I want to decrease the exposure in the sky, I want to increase the exposure in this fog here, and I'm going to darken my foreground. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to crop, so I'm going to go for a 4:5 to emphasize this tree here. So I'm going to bring this across, crop that slightly, there we go, just like that. Okay, this tree here is unsightly, so I'm going to repair that. I'm going to remove it, so just like that, and it's gone. Nicely done, and you can hardly even see it. Okay, perfect. Next, I'm going to do some kind of global adjustments with the selective tone here. The smart lighting has done a nice job of bringing back a bit of contrast, and I'm going to just decrease the shadows and decrease the highlights slightly. I know I want to make this brighter, but I will do that in a minute. And the clear view, I mean, it's foggy, so I don't want to take away too much of the fog, but I do want to bring back a small bit of detail in these mountains here, so I'm going to increase the clear view a bit, and light tonal curve. Okay, that's already looking heaps better. I don't like how kind of contrasty these shadows are looking, so I might just up them a small bit. Okay, time to go into our local adjustments. So I'm gonna first bring down a graduated filter from the sky, and I'm gonna decrease the exposure on that and decrease the shadows just like that. Perfect, and increase the clear view, give a bit more contrast in that sky. I don't like how purpley that is looking, to be honest with you, so I can just decrease the saturation there, so the top of that sky is not so kind of purpley looking. I can even maybe bring up the white balance slightly. Don't go too warm because it looks like it's got a haze in it. Okay, I'll fix that afterwards. I might even crop that out, to be honest. Ah yeah, there we go. Didn't like the top of that sky there. Okay, that's better. Next, back into our local adjustments. We're going to be doing a small bit of work with our local adjustments here, so I'm going to get a control point and I'm going to open it up over this area, and you can see how it's selecting. It knows what I want. It's not selecting my foreground here, it's selecting the fog, which is very handy. I'm going to up the midtones there and up the highlights. Perfect, very nice. I'm going to duplicate that and I'm going to bring it over here. Now I've increased exposure in the fog, and yeah, let's see where it's selected. That's quite alright with me. Might move it over here just a touch, just like that. Perfect. Once again, back into our local adjustments, we're going to get another graduated filter, and we're going to pull that up from the bottom of our screen, and we're going to reduce the exposure on that, just to get our eye away from, I want my eye to be seen on this fence leading along here, and obviously the tree. Don't really want my eye drifting down to the bottom. And don't make it too contrasty. Okay, perfect. If I was going to make this kind of very soft pastel image, I would up the blacks an awful lot, and I would reduce the contrast. And that's kind of your soft pastel tones. I'm going for more of a moodier image here. I'll show you why in a second. Okay, let's see how that's looking. It's looking a lot better. I want to go back into that initial graduate filter for a second. So I'm not happy with that sky yet. I'm bringing those midtones right down. Ah, that's better, look at that. Okay. There we go, perfect. I'm only starting to use this, so I need to get rid of all this. I find that very annoying there. Okay. Yeah, that's looking good. That's looking very good. Could we even maybe go a bit more over here? Have all this negative space on the right hand side. Quite happy with that. Okay, so let's jump into Nik Collection and Color Effects to do some more adjustments. So I already have one there, so I'll just say use unique names. Okay, so these are my favorite filters to use in Color Effects Pro. I use Skylight Filter, I use Pro Contrast, sometimes use this, and I use Glamour Glow. So I'm going to go for Skylight Filter first. And this helps bring on those purples and pinks in the sky, but it can also have like I don't want this cast here. I don't want this pinky magenta cast. So what I can do for that is I can just add a control line, or I can add control points to wherever I want the filter to affect. I only want to affect certain clouds, so I'm just going to add control points. So I'm going to put it over the clouds that I know are actually pink in the image, you know. So for example, there, maybe a bit there. So now I've only affected the areas I want to affect. And I can adjust the opacity of all these and the luminance and all these different settings that I often don't play with, and I probably should. But for me, the default settings are often good enough. And I can increase the strength of that filter, or I can decrease it. So I kind of like those pinks, because they work quite vibrant. And remember, this is a raw file we're working with. So next, Pro Contrast. And I love this slider, Dynamic Contrast. This just gives, like, you can go too far with this obviously, but this just gives contrast in the right areas. If you're after this kind of contrasty image, which I am in this photograph. Okay, that's looking quite good. Now I want to soften it, and Glamour Glow it's like Orton effect. Doesn't do the same thing as Orton, but it's similar enough, and that gives it that soft kind of ethereal looking glow, and I really like that. I might tone down this one up here. So if I go back to my right hand side panel, to my skylight filter, I can see my control points here, which one is I'm looking for. It's control point 3, and I can reduce the opacity of that if I don't want it to be so strong. Okay, really happy with that. Click apply, and it'll bring us back into Photolab. So this was our image that we were working on. I think I have 2 of them, so this is it. This is the one we were working on. So you can see this is the one I was editing last night, and I went for a much softer kind of ethereal look on this one, and I suppose this has gone a bit more grungy and contrasty. So whichever one you prefer, 2 different edits, same image. I probably went for the more contrasty one for this edit, but you can go for a softer one. If I did want to soften this up, not a hard thing to do. Just turn back on my contrast there and just roll back the contrast. And I can also roll up the blacks and the clear view. Well, I don't want that actually, that's going to look terrible, you know. So after that, then that's about it. I mean, I wouldn't want to do a whole lot more to this image. And yeah, turned out really nice. I've increased the saturation in the sky in certain areas, I've increased exposure here, and I've brought the focal point of this tree into the photograph in comparison to our raw file here. So I purposely shot this, placing the tree on the left hand side. I wanted this negative space all on the right hand side here. So yeah, and I didn't use half the tools here in Photolab, very little, but I used the ones that I find work for me. In terms of the profiles, this is selected as default, the natural, but I always go to my camera profile. I just find that works better, and anytime I've opened DxO with a new lens or a new camera, it's always downloaded the profile for my camera, which I find really good. This was shot at ISO, what was it shot at? ISO 100. So yeah, I don't really feel like doing any noise reduction here. It's not needed, it's not necessary, you know. So yeah, that's a little editing tutorial in Photolab and Nik Collection. Hope you enjoyed it.